become a contrarian on almost every level, on almost every issue, who sells his streaming network as a solution to the problem he claims there's out there on the media lines. It's what we've seen, of course, again and again from the Trumps of the world.
But isn't he?
But
isn't he also simply tacking from where the audience was, which is linear cable news TV, to where the audience might be, which are digital platforms, whether it might be YouTube or X or elsewhere?
Yeah, he is following the right-wing audience in two ways. One, ideologically, the right-wing audience in the U.S. is radicalized. Donald Trump has created many cult members and brought them further to the right. Tucker Carlson is in that same direction. And yes, he is moving into the streaming world where theoretically you can reach more people. It is notable that Carlson said in his video from Moscow that Elon Musk had already said Musk will stream this interview on X without any restrictions or censorship. So in other words, Carlson worked with Musk ahead of time on this interview. That is very interesting. It's very curious. Carlson also came out and claimed that other social networks were trying to censor and trying to shut this interview down. There's no evidence of that, of course. But his entire worldview is that everyone's out to get his followers. I think it's important to know, Carlson, he's reaching fewer people online, but he's reaching a more hardcore, dedicated, loyal fan base. He's not reaching millions of people every night the way he was on Fox. But he's reaching his friends that will on his every word. But is it really easy to file his business for a media personality, a news personality in America to lead a huge established network like Fox News and set out on his own? Is it viable? It is viable, but it's not going to be able to make more money than it's still, Fox News is still a part of the deal to be the dominant network by far on the right in the United States. That is still the profit engine if you're a wannabe for Carlson. But I think it is possible for Carlson to go out, get a million subscribers, make several $1 million a year in profit. That will work for him, but he's not going to be as influential. However, figures like you don't have any other options, right? If you're the Russian president, you want to flattering, sycophantic interview from an American personality, who else are you going to call? Tucker Carlson's one of his only options. And by the way, Carlson says he's streaming this interview for free.
Well, we'll have to see what adjectives we attach to the interview when we see it, which we haven't done yet. But Francis, to the point that Brian was making about Tucker Carlson saying, look, I'm going to put this whole interview out unedited, you can see it for yourself. I think the unedited version will be available in Russia. And if it is, what platforms will Russian media consumers use to access these?
I would imagine this will be all over Russian state TV, which remains the main source of news for most Russians. About 2/3 of people in the country get their news from there. But it's also the stories being over Telegram, the main social media platform in Russia, with Tucker Carlson's every move in Moscow, well documented his visit to the ballet, his visit to the supermarket, and any journalists attempting to get a question in with him in his hotel. So I think it's safe to say this story will continue to dominate Russia for the next few days.
Francis, Brian, thank you very much indeed. That's Francis Scarf from Symbology and Brian Stelzer, the author and analyst. Now, also here on the media show is LTV News' deputy presenter, Danushka Estada. Good to have you back on the program, Danushka.
Thank you.
Now, we're talking to you because you have two programs out. You have TV Profile of Labour's Keir Starmer, and now you have one with the Prime Minister that's coming out. It's called Rishi Sunak Up Close, and along with other locations as well, you were allowed to film with Mr. Sunak as he helped his daughters get ready for school. Let's hear a little bit of that.
Do you do that?
I should explain that Danushka was also the name of one of the Prime Minister's daughters. Now, I just wonder, when you said something like when you set something like this up, what are the rules of engagement that you agree with the Prime Minister's press team?
I think we wouldn't accept any, huge stipulations in terms of how we do this, what the content is, what we want to ask about. But what we do say is that we want to get behind the scenes and that we want to show a more personal side of his Starmer and then Rishi Sunak. So obviously the expectation on their side is that yes, we're going to hopefully grill him about policy, but we're also going to be other thing, which I think, and I'm going to listen to this number, and no doubt I'll get it with Richie soon, actually, people are really quite negative about politicians at the moment. There's real angst in the country, and no wonder, by the way. We've had a cost of living crisis, we've had a massive loss of trust because of, scandals like Archway. People don't feel very warm towards politicians right now, and what we do in these films is we show the human side of both Rishi Sunak and of Keir Starmer, and I'm sure there's going to be some people going, I just want you to spend half an hour shouting at them about this particular thing that I'm angry about. And look, I'll be honest, this is not necessary to do that. It's something slightly different. But I think politicians are and they just put on the news the other day. I do think politicians are people, and it's okay sometimes to see that side of them.
And Rishi Sunak's media team has actually agreed to a range of different exchanges with journalists in the last couple of weeks. We'll done with him, but he's also done a number of interviews with Rachel Bergman, Friday Live, Piers Morgan. Next week he'll appear on the GB News People's Forum. Why do you think it is that the Prime Minister's team and the Prime Minister himself have decided this is the time to agree to a raft of media appearances like this? What's the plan?
Well, I think there's two really important things going on here. Now, what was really interesting to see the difference between Labour and the Conservatives on this. The Conservatives are in a dire position in the Parliament. They think that they are heading probably to not win the next election, although he does say, I do think we win in our exchanges. But, he knew when he took this job it was very, very difficult. The members of his team are convinced that the person they know behind the scenes is different to the guy who's seen as awkward and out of touch when he's on the screen. And so I felt that to some extent there was a sense of someone who has less to lose than Labour's Keir Starmer. And so the one thing they think they can do is let's throw everything at him, let people in and let's see if they see the position we see. The risk of that, of course, is that he might be seen as more out of touch, or he might be seen as more awkward in those situations. But that, I think, is what they feel they want to try and get across.
Thanks very much for telling us about the programme. It's called Rishi Sunak Up Close. It's on ITV1 and ITVX on Thursday at 8:30pm. As ever, Anushka, thank you very much for coming on the media show. That's ITV News' deputy producer, Anushka Starr. Now, next on the media show, let's turn to a big announcement from the BBC. It plans to launch its first new radio stations for over 20 years. They're all music stations. Lorna Carr is Director of Music at the BBC. One year with the media show studio. Tell us more.
So we know that music stations have to
take risks around that when nobody else does. That's what I mean about distinctive. If you go into the nostalgia space, it's not simply about getting the best nostalgic records and pressing them in the right order with a very talented sound presenters. There's more to it. And that's why the offer is different.
Right, just so we're clear, the sister station to Radio 2 will play music that is primarily from the 50s, 60s and 70s, primarily for the listener
accept that you are targeting the same audiences as for
But we're doing that now. If you look at the latest radar, 7 million for Radio 2 audience is over 55. So that's a significant. We're still serving people. They want a mixture of lots of different formats.
And Phil, can I ask you, if you accept the premise of a license fee where the whole country is paying for a public service broadcaster, isn't it quite right that it involves its music programming, both individual programs, BBC Sounds and networks, in order to provide services that work for people all over the country?
Well, I do find it interesting that BBC license fees are under review and the BBC are claiming to be effectively strapped for cash and are treating their existing radio services, which is BBC local radio, to having to take significant cuts in broadcast output in order to carry on funding them. They've suddenly been able to find
Let's get into that, but there's a number of people listening. May be wondering about that. Lorna, where's the money coming from?
So I'm responsible for network music, radio stations and TV commissioning. I can't talk on behalf of what's happening.
You can talk about where the money comes
But I can say that it is usual for us to look at our total budget within content and make a decision about what we will spend now and what we will do to make sure that we are secure for the future. It's exactly how we paid for BBC Sounds in 2018. It's exactly how we paid for Six Music, Asia Network and One. It wasn't extra money, it was recutting what we had.
And Jill, from Ender's analysis, finally to you, in the end this will come down, am I right, to whether Ofcom says okay?
Yes, there has to be a public interest test, and BBC will start a consultation probably in the next couple of weeks, which will run for probably a couple of months. And then after that, it has to go to Ofcom to determine actually whether they are crowding out the competition or not. And I think you have to sort of differentiate between crowding out of a sort of a global format to large radio station rates in the UK with vast majority listening in like many different sectors, hundreds of stations, and then sort of like a small format. And then you need to differentiate between that.
Okay.
Part of that is looking at the distinctiveness of the format.
Jill, thank you very much indeed. Yours is the last word. Thank you, Jill Hunt from Ender's analysis, Lorna Clark, BBC Director of Music, Phil Riley, co-founder of Boom Radio, Anushka Stana from ITV News, we also heard from Brian Stelter and from Francis Scarr earlier in the programme. In this edition, all editions of the media show on BBC Now Sounds. But for now, bye-bye.
The media show was presented by Ross Atkins, the producer was Simon Richardson, and the sound engineer was Johnny Baker.
I'm Jeffrey Bludgeon.
And I'm Kerry Smith. On BBC Radio 4, we're finding music links.
Between what seem like disparate styles of music.
there's so many similarities between our singing and this kind of singing because it's so present.
To start off the series, we'll have the London Bulgarian Choir live in the studio.
Together with the opera singer Nicky Spence and the singer-songwriter Corinne Bailey-Gray.
A particular kind of vibrato, something sort of stopping the air. I've never been singing like it.
Add to playlist returns to BBC Radio 4
Starts on Friday evening at 7:15.
on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
This is BBC Radio 4, where it's 5 o'clock and time for PM with Evan Davis.
Hello there. A week on now, the police have still not found the Clapham alkaline attack suspect Abdul Shakur Aziz. But in the last hour, they say he had been in a relationship with the woman he attacked. We'll have the latest. HS2, the parliamentary spending watchdog, is scathing about the handling of the project. Meanwhile, the Metro mayors of the West Midlands and Greater Manchester say the West Coast Main Line north of Birmingham has to be upgraded.
If things stay as they are and there's no solution, when HS2 opens, we'll have worse rail services out of Manchester Piccadilly than we've currently got. They will go slower and there will be fewer seats.
Also on PM, Putin has done his first interview with a Western journalist since his invasion of Ukraine with this guy.
Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine, or what his goals are now. We never heard his voice. That's wrong.
Tucker Carlson, former Fox News host, has been sympathetic to Putin and influential on the American right. We'll look at where the debate over Ukraine is in the US. Back in Westminster, a fiery PM cues.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber
Shame on them. Shame.
The Prime Minister accused of transphobia, while separately one MP talked